Well, hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to today's edition and live stream of The Goldie Show with your host, me, Goldie Ghamari. Welcome, everyone. We're going to continue where we left off yesterday with the congressional hearing where Admiral Brad Cooper, 2 days ago on May 19, testified before the House Committee on the Iran war. And, it is a 3 hour video. I think I played about, 30 minutes of it. And that 30 minutes basically lasted almost 3 hours because there was a lot of ranting and commentary. Let's get settled in. Tonight's bubbly flavored drink is raspberry. So I have a raspberry flavored bubbly drink. And let's get going. And of course, as usual, in between everything, I will be keeping an eye on the latest updates and developments when it comes to all things Iran, the United States, Israel, and the Middle East. And we're also probably going to do a little bit of a watch party at 8 o'clock when Jesse Waters goes live, because I always do appreciate what he says. And then, of course, at 9 p.m. when Sean Hannity goes live as well. So don't forget to like, subscribe, share the live stream, and get settled in. And let's get started. So here we go, guys. All right. And again, like as a former politician, this is like, I love this kind of stuff. I love watching this kind of stuff. So I would be watching this on my own anyway. So instead of, yelling at my TV by myself, I can yell at my monitor and you guys can see it as well. Kuda says, hello, Gigi. Hello, welcome, welcome. And then let the ranting start. Yeah, I mean, I'll try not to rant too much, but let's see what happens here. So, yeah, let's get going.
Thank you, General. Thank all the witnesses for being here in those testimonies. That's very helpful to us. I recognize myself for questions. Admiral Cooper, you have spent the last 6 years in either senior leadership or command positions in the Middle East. In your expert opinion, was there any time over the last 40 years that Iran or the Iranian regime posed a greater threat to the United States, Israel, and our allies in the region before Midnight Hammer and Epic Fury?
No, sir.
So are they less capable today than they were before those exercises?
They are significantly less capable today than they were before the two major operations.
And what would a nuclear-armed Iran mean for our partners in the Middle East and our presence there?
Well, clearly the president has stated Iran will not be nuclear armed. It would obviously represent a very highly destabilizing element into the region and have global impact.
So basically, we're safer, our country's safer, and our allies in the region are safer because of what our president's done in Iran over the last couple of months.
We are unquestionably safer as a result of U.S. military actions.
Thank you. General Anderson, the operation that eliminated the global ISIS second-in-command over the weekend demonstrated the growing terrorist threat in your AOR, but also the value of the partnerships that we have there. How are you strengthening partnerships in your AOR going forward to make sure that that threat doesn't make it to our homeland?
Chairman, that's an incredibly important point, because we cannot operate there and respond to these crises or these threats without the access, basing, and overflight that is dependent upon the relationships with these partners. So we are investing a significant amount of effort in order to build those relationships and build that credibility. The operation over the weekend built a lot of that credibility of what the U.S. can bring, and that those unique capabilities can be brought to bear in conjunction with our partners. The Nigerians have been instrumental throughout the last several months, developing the target, helping us with the intelligence, and providing support in order to do that. So it could not have been done by our own forces, that we needed to do that in conjunction with them. We are using that to leverage that to engage with.
So I have a feeling that they're sort of starting with Africa, because Africa will eventually tie into what's happening in the Middle East, right? And like I was explaining yesterday, all of the Islamic terrorism that's happening in Africa and the instability in Africa, it all goes back and it's connected to the Islamic regime that's occupying Iran. It's connected to the Muslim Brotherhood and Qatar.
Other nations, such as those in the Sahel, where the terrorist threat continues to grow, to try to open that dialogue so we can address this mutual threat.
Is there anything in particular that this committee could do to be helpful to you in developing partnerships that can benefit us in the future?
Yes, sir. I think some key investments in some of the expeditionary capabilities, such as a float forward staging base, expeditionary ISR is critical to that. Support for continued engagement with small teams, such as our special operations teams or small conventional trainers, goes a long way. And then the last one I would say that is not as much in the military realm, but where we see the security convergence and intersection with economics is encouraging investment and development in Africa that allows for that stability to continue to develop, because security depends upon stability that allows investment, and that leads to prosperity, and that's eventually helps protect the United States in the long run. So while not directly our role, we can help identify those areas where those investments have security implications.
Yeah, well, I do think it's important when we talk about our role there that we make it clear to the larger universe of members of Congress that we do need to be building partnerships in the African continent, and we don't need to be tying that to them changing their cultural values necessarily. We need partnerships, and whether we like it or not, China and Russia and Iran are all down there building partnerships, and they're not judging these people based on their cultural values. So it's something.
You know, that's a really good point that he brings up. The Islamic regime occupying Iran, the Communist Party of China, and of course, Putin's Russia, they are allies. However, China and Russia do not view the Islamic regime as an equal ally. China and Russia view the Islamic regime as sort of a pawn on the game of chess that they're playing against the United States and Israel. So the Islamic regime has made the critical mistake of assuming that China and Russia view them as equals. And I think that that miscalculation is also one of the reasons why the Islamic regime is much weaker today, because again, they wrongly assumed that China and Russia view them as equals, but China and Russia don't. China and Russia view the Islamic regime as just a tool, right? Just like another card in their deck, I guess. And up until recently, the Islamic regime was making decisions based on the incorrect understanding that China and Russia would have their backs, assuming that, you know, they're all equals. And I think now they're finally, well, they finally realize now that that's not the case at all. And in fact, China and Russia have just been using them. And, you know, guys, ultimately, there's no honor amongst thieves, right? There's no honor amongst terrorists. So the Islamic regime has had a very rude awakening in the last several days, I believe. But yeah, and Kuda says, perfectly stated. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, let's continue.
I think we can learn from.
Go back.
With that, they're not judging China, and we don't need to be tying that to them changing their cultural values necessarily. We need partnerships, and whether we like it or not, China and Russia and Iran are all down there building partnerships. And
yeah, to a degree. And Donald, you're absolutely right. Like, the Islamic regime would have betrayed China and Russia anyway if they were in the position to do so. I mean, you're 100% right. That's exactly what the Islamic regime did with like the UAE and the Saudi Arabia and Oman and all these other countries, right? Like, again, the UAE used to be one of the biggest hubs of financial laundering for the Islamic regime just up until like a few months ago. And then, of course, when the conflict began, the Islamic regime sent more missiles to the UAE than they did to Israel. And that in and of itself demonstrates that when push comes to shove, the Islamic regime will attack anyone, even those that have been helping to prolong its existence. And the UAE has learned that lesson the hard way, and it's unfortunate because they actually have risked the safety of their citizens by doing so. So they learned the lesson by risking the safety of their citizens.
They're not judging these people based on their cultural values. So it's something I think we can learn from. With that, I will yield to the ranking member for any questions he may have.
Thank you. Admiral Cooper, you mentioned your opening remarks, the
I hate
commitment
this
of your
guy.
command to preventing civilian harm. So just two questions about that. One, it's been 80 days thereabouts since the initial bombing campaign that struck the girls' school in Iran.
Oh my
Tehran
God.
killed, I think, over 150 schoolgirls.
Wow. So this idiot is basically repeating Islamic regime propaganda when the truth and the evidence has come out that school was actually built on a military base, and there was, military bases around it, and the Islamic regime was literally using and still is using schools and hospitals and residential areas and sports stadiums as human shields. And wow, like this is wild. So the Democrats are literally repeating, once again, they're repeating Islamic regime propaganda. You know what? What's interesting is I haven't commented on this yet because I'm still waiting for more info to come out. Because of course, it's very difficult to get all the right info, especially with the Islamic regime having shut down the internet. But my understanding is, there is a rumor out there. We're waiting to see if it's confirmed or not. But apparently, there were two schools, and one of the there were two schools in that area. One of the schools was for the children of IRGC people, and the other school was just for regular civilians. And apparently, on the day of the attack, the school that was for the children of IRGC members, that school was actually closed that day, and the children of IRGC members did not go to the school. However, the civilians, they were not given a heads up or a warning, and so their children were sent. So if that's the case, I mean, that's just more evidence that what happened was basically the Islamic regime using children as human shields, which is absolutely shameful.
Girls, it's really pretty clear what happened there.
No, it's
But
not.
80 days on, we have not taken responsibility for that attack.
Well, what makes you think the United States is responsible for that? And first of all, out of everything that's been going on, why are you focused on that one situation? How come you're not speaking about the 40,000 people that were mass slaughtered in 2 days alone? Like it's evil, it's vile, it's actually disgusting and shameful that this Democrat is politicizing the blood of Iranian children to further his anti-Trump and pro-Islamic regime agenda, right? Like it's shameful. It's shameful. And you do not get to talk about school children unless you've already spoken and raised awareness about the mass slaughter of over 40,000 Iranians on January 8 and 9, right? Like you do not get to talk about that. So it's very obvious that this garbage person is politicizing the blood of Iranian children for his own agenda, and shame on him, shame on him, shame on you for doing so.
Endless stalling that's being investigated. It's being investigated. It's being investigated. In the past, when we've had these types of mistakes, they have been quickly acknowledged, even if a further investigation is necessary to figure out prevention methods. So can you at this moment acknowledge that that mistake was made and that we were responsible for it? It's something we didn't want to do and don't want to repeat.
Congressman, to reiterate, the United States does not deliberately target us.
Got that part.
Period. Full stop. And nor are the Iranian people our enemy. The IRGC is the adversary in this case.
I heard.
Wow, you know what? That's really important, and I'm really grateful to Admiral Cooper for making that distinction, because that evil Democrat, he obviously does not understand the distinction between the Iranian people and the Islamic regime, or the IRGC. So, good on Admiral Cooper for very clearly and plainly putting out that distinction, because that's important.
Not deliberately target
Got that part.
Period. Full stop. And nor are the Iranian people our enemy. The IRGC is the adversary in this case.
Yeah.
I heard that in your opening statement, Admiral. I asked you a very specific question, and I'm curious what the answer is.
So the investigation is ongoing. As soon as it is complete, I'm happy to be as
So that's
transparent as
enough.
possible.
We will not take responsibility
and-
for something we very obviously did.
And what, sir?
What an idiot! Like like Admiral Brad Cooper is clearly saying that the investigation is ongoing. So, like, what makes you think that you know more than the guy who's literally in charge of the military operation? Like, does that guy think he has more intel than the military? Like it's pretty obvious he's getting his intel from the Islamic regime. And, like I've said before, with the Islamic regime, if their lips are moving, they're lying. Like the guy's literally just repeating Islamic regime propaganda.
It's a complex investigation. The school itself is located on an active IRGC cruise missile base.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like that's what we've been saying from the beginning. The school is located on an active IRGC military base, which means that it loses all protections under the Geneva Convention, because we Iranians, we have been saying from the get-go, even like months before the military operation began, we Iranians were putting out images and videos and footage of the Islamic regime using schools as human shields, because that's what they do. But the thing is that, like, you put like, the fault here, the fault is the fault of the Islamic regime. It's the Islamic regime's fault for placing a school next to a military base. Like, what normal, rational country does that? I mean, think about the United States. Is there a single elementary school that is like right beside a legitimate military target, or within a legitimate military target? Absolutely not. It doesn't exist. This is how Islamic terrorists operate. They use people as human shields so that afterwards, they can create a false flag event. Or even if it's not a false flag event, then they can say, oh, look, like innocent civilians. Yeah. The fault, the blame lies at the hands of the Islamic regime. It's the Islamic regime that is responsible for the murder and death of those children, not the United States. Okay, see a few comments here. Kuda says Admiral Cooper is a boss. Yes, I absolutely agree. And Oracle of Hecate says, this guy is just a mouthpiece. Feelings over facts. He is entitled and lame. His Willy Wonka tie annoys me. There's a lot of things about him that annoy me. I haven't even focused on his appearance. But all right, let's go to Jesse Waters really quickly. Let's see what he has to say. We can have like the latest news on Iran.
Welcome to a special edition of Jesse Waters Primetime. I'm Kaylee McEnany, and for Jesse. Well, the DNC finally released their 2024 autopsy report. I have it here. And it came after Kamala stained their party with her 107-day campaign. They've been trying to figure out what went wrong, and somehow it took them almost 200 pages, literally filled with typos, to find an answer. And they still don't get it. Their biggest takeaways: you can't just be anti-Trump. You have to stay on offense, coordinate strategies, and don't take voters for granted. The diagnosis on Kamala, the $1 billion she raised, just wasn't enough. They want small donors opening their pockets earlier. But they finally admitted their deep bench is actually pretty thin. The autopsy says they need to focus on the long game. But the DNC didn't want this to get out. Their head, Ken Martin, said that the report wasn't ready for prime time. But even CNN wants more.
It does not touch a couple of topics that a lot of people were very interested in and thought were the reasons for.
All right, I'll keep an eye on that in case they share something about Iran. But let's go back to the hearing. And Sabre Coaching said school had an IRGC military antenna on the roof. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what it does. So, guys, like, I want to be very clear. It's not that we're not upset about the death of the children. We are 100% upset and mortified. However, what we understand as Iranians is that the death of these children lies at the hands of the Islamic regime. Like, we don't blame the United States or Israel. We blame the Islamic regime for putting the children in that situation in the first place and for using children as human shields. That's the issue here. That's the issue. But the Democrat Party is just politicizing the blood of Iranian people for their own political gain, and that's what's shameful. Because, you know, this guy, he's so upset about the school children, but he's silent on the mass slaughter of over 40,000 innocent Iranians on January 8 and 9. And I haven't seen him post anything about the recent executions of innocent Iranians by the Islamic regime. So, you know, when these people are engaging in selective outrage, that means that, like, that they're not neutral, right? Selective outrage basically means that they're just using this as propaganda to further their political agenda, and that's incredibly shameful. That's incredibly shameful. Okay, let's continue.
More complex than the average strike.
Question, and I'm curious. That's enough.
Possible. So the investigation is ongoing. As soon as it's complete, I'm happy to be as
so that's
transparent
enough.
as possible.
We will not take responsibility for something we very obviously did.
So it's a complex investigation. The school itself is located on an active IRGC cruise missile base.
Absolutely.
It's more complex than the average strike. As soon as we're complete, I'm fully committed to transparency, given your important oversight role and the other members here.
Just so you know, and I have an enormous amount of respect for you and an enormous amount of respect for the Pentagon, I do not trust that answer. What we've seen out of the Secretary of Defense and his callous disregard for any sort of rules of engagement or protecting civilian life may make us suspicious.
Are you kidding
And that's
me?
the only second question I have for you. Do you think it's ever appropriate for anybody in a leadership position to use the words "no quarter" when describing how we are conducting our operations?
Yes, it is absolutely correct to say no quarter when you're dealing with a brutal Islamic dictatorship that literally rapes, tortures, and executes men, women, and children in the name of Allah and Islam and jihad. So yes, 100%. It is absolutely appropriate to show no mercy for modern day Muslim Nazis. Yes, it's appropriate. We want the Islamic regime boom-boomed. That's what we want. That we think 100% appropriate. 100% appropriate.
In Iran.
So I think it's appropriate as military leaders. We follow the law of armed conflict and our constitutional responsibilities, and that's what we've done.
And you would agree that no quarter is not following the law?
I would agree it's our constitutional responsibility to follow the law.
Is no quarter following the law or not?
I would agree that we follow the law, sir.
But you're not going to get
monikers,
specific.
the monikers, and how
just
other
going to have
people
sort of a
characterize
general,
things.
generic understanding of it,
I
and
just
then
keep it
do
super
whatever we want to do.
So this is, you know, what this guy is doing, this Democrat, it's actually very sneaky, and it's also very disingenuous, because what this Democrat is doing, Mr. Smith or whatever his name is, this garbage person, he is taking the statement of an elected official. He's taking the statement of a politician, and then he's asking someone who is in the military, you know, a non-political role, right? So he is trying to get someone who is a non-political individual to comment on a political statement. And you can't do that, right? Like, it's kind of like, how do I explain this? So imagine like a bureaucrat. Let's say a bureaucrat who works in, I don't know, the Department of State, for example, right? So um, imagine like asking a bureaucrat to justify and explain and comment on what Marco Rubio said. You can't do that because the bureaucrat is in an apolitical, nonpartisan role. So what he's doing here, like, this is totally inappropriate. Like when I was chairing committees, politicians try to do this all the time, right? Like the politicians would take like a statement from someone and they would ask a bureaucrat, what do you think of this? What are your comments on this? Like, how do you interpret this? And I would always I would call it out. Like, I would basically say that this line of questioning is out of order. Why? Because you cannot ask a non politician to comment on a political statement, right? And that's exactly what this guy is doing here right now, right? Like, he's trying to put Admiral Brad Cooper, who, again, he's not a politician, he's in a nonpartisan, non-political position, right? He wants him to comment on a political statement, which is 100% inappropriate. Like just look at how he's trying to trap Admiral Brad Cooper. And Admiral Brad Cooper is like, we just follow the law, right? Like, Admiral Brad Cooper cannot comment on political statements because that's not his job. He's not a politician. So it is completely inappropriate and out of line for this Democrat to be asking Admiral Brad Cooper to comment on a political statement.
And our constitutional responsibilities, and that's what we've done.
And you would agree that no quarter is not following the law?
I would agree it's our constitutional responsibility to follow the law.
Is no quarter following the law or not?
I would agree that we follow the law, sir.
But you're not going to get specific.
The monikers and how other people
have sort of a general, generic understanding of it, and then do whatever we want to do with no accountability. Look, people make mistakes. It's in a war. Things happen. I get that. Okay. And I'm not going to be as overly judgmental as some, but that the arrogance of this Pentagon and their unwillingness to acknowledge any mistake is precisely the reason that we are in the hole that we're in with no way out of. Somebody in that command needs to own up to the dumb things that are said and done to give us some confidence that they won't keep happening. Mr. Zimmerman, can you explain to me how it works, why it is considered to be intelligent for the president day after day after day to keep saying that Iran has agreed to things that very clearly they have not agreed to, which then becomes obvious to the entire world within some 24 to 48-hour time period? Help me out here. What is the strategy of the president standing up and saying, we have defeated them, the war is over, they've agreed to everything? I mean, doesn't that just make us look like a bunch of clowns past a certain point when it becomes obvious that that's not the case?
Congressman, the president's willingness to act decisively to protect Americans and our partners and allies has advanced U.S. credibility. It has not sunk U.S. credibility.
Well, but addressing this specific issue, we could have that debate in a different direction. But he has repeatedly said that Iran has agreed to things that they obviously have not agreed to. And let me ask the question this way. Is the president misinformed?
No, he's not misinformed. It's because the Islamic regime will say one thing to your face and then behind your back, they do something totally different. Like, you idiot. Like, why are you, it boggles my mind. It blows my mind that this Democrat thinks that the words coming out of the mouths of Islamic regime terrorists are more reliable than what President Trump is saying. Like, in what reality would you think that the Islamic regime is more reliable and trustworthy than the President of the United States? Like, how insane are you? Like, how much Trump derangement syndrome are you suffering from that you actually think the president is misinformed. No, we Iranians, we have been trying to tell you from the very beginning that you cannot trust the Islamic regime, because if their lips are moving, they're lying. So yeah, of course the Islamic regime will say one thing to your face, and then afterwards they say something completely different. And like, guys, we have been exposing the Islamic regime on Islamic Regime State TV. We've been showing like their messaging, their narrative. Like, this is insane. This is insane. Like, shame on this man. Shame on this man. You know why? Shame on him? Because this is not just about like political posturing. There are human lives at risk. Like, the Iranian people have been begging for outside assistance for years, for decades. Even when Obama was the president, the Iranian people were asking Obama to help. They were chanting Obama's name in the street. They were saying, the chant was Obama, Obama, ya bamai, ya unha, which means Obama, Obama, you're either with us or you're with them. And by them, they're referring to the Islamic regime. So even in 2009, Iranian people were asking the United States for help, and Obama, like the traitor garbage person that he is, he took the side of the Islamic regime. He took the side of the Islamic regime. Obama, the traitor, right? Like, let me find the let me find it for you. Like, Obama had an opportunity to where is it? Like, he had an opportunity. And Obama chose the side of terrorists. Wait, where is it? Let me find it on X. Give me one moment, guys. Like, Iranians asking, the president of the United States for help is not new. Let's see if I can find it. Like, this goes back to 2009, but it's there. Where is it? Sorry, we're going back quite a bit here, but all right, I need to find this. Give me a moment, but let's continue with the congressional hearing. But I will find that clip, because this isn't the first time that Iranians have asked for help. It's not. And shame on this evil man for politicizing this for his own personal gain. And shame on him for thinking that the Islamic regime is more reliable and trustworthy than the president of the United States. Like, that's wild. That's absolutely wild.
He has repeatedly said that Iran has agreed to things that they obviously have not agreed to. And let me ask the question this way. Is the president misinformed? Are people doing a bad job of informing him about what's going on? Is he that ignorant about the circumstances? Or is he just making it up as part of some, I don't know, six-dimensional chess strategy here? So why?
The president has the best information available to any head of state.
Why does he keep getting it wrong then?
The president does not keep getting it wrong. The White House is leading these negotiations to find a long-term solution.
I'm sorry, you have 20 seconds left here, but he doesn't keep getting it wrong. He says, literally, the strait is open. Iran has agreed to give up their nuclear weapons. Iran has agreed to give up their ballistic missile programs. That's your basic question. Is the Strait of Hormuz open? Has Iran given up their nuclear weapons?
The Strait of Hormuz is a complex situation right now. where you have a severely degraded
Look,
foe.
I hope you look back at this and understand how bad this is making you look.
No,
I mean, look, you can answer the question now.
Yeah.
You can challenge me in 1,000 different ways, but to just pretend that reality isn't reality and say it over and over again in a public hearing, I'm sorry, that's not helping our credibility. Thank you for the indulgence, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
What
Chair
a
now
rumor.
recognizes a gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Chairman Mike Rogers, for your correct assessment that the American military is unmatched professionalism, as we see with the three witnesses today. How reassuring for the American people, and how a deterrence it is to the enemies we have around the world. I've never been more appreciative of the American military than I am today. As a 31-year veteran.
Let me just go to some of your comments before we start with the new guy. So Kuda says, arrogance is not of the Pentagon, but on Mr. Smith. I agree. Oracle of Hecate says, this hearing is pure political theater. These people just want to score points with their idiotic base. It is a complete waste of time and money. I mean, yes and no. I mean, hearings are important. So it is important. Yes, the Democrats are looking to just score political points and get, sound bites that they can use to, get reelected. However, at the same time, the responses from Admiral Brad Cooper and others, they are very important. Like Admiral Brad Cooper has said a lot of really important things. In last night's live stream, remember in his opening statement, he acknowledged that the Islamic regime has slaughtered tens of thousands of Iranians in the last few months alone, and they're executing people every day. So that's important. Like there's a lot of information you can glean, not necessarily from the Democrats because they're useless, but from the answers themselves. Tom for life. Democrats don't trust the U.S. military. They constantly underfund them and try to discredit them. There was a lot of back and forth today on the negotiations. Your thoughts? I don't think there was any back and forth, really. I mean, President Trump has made it very clear what he wants. So I don't know what back and forth there is. I have a feeling that the back and forth is just Pakistan trying to make themselves feel relevant and useful and important in some way. Because, I mean, President Trump has made it very clear. Let me just go back to what President Trump said earlier today. Let me just find one of the videos and share it. But, I mean, like President Trump has said that there's, no nuclear, right? No nuclear. And if the Islamic regime does not agree to the deal that President Trump wants, then that's it. Like they're going to boom, boom, right? So let me just play this really quickly here for you guys. Like this is what President Trump was saying.
Right now we're negotiating and we'll see, but either we're going to get it one way or the other. They're not going to have a nuclear weapon. When people hear it, because oftentimes they won't put up the second part of the sentence having to do with, I'll say, this is more important than anything that we have to talk about. And usually they'll cut it off, the fake news. I said, because this is the nuclearization of a country that some people would say is somewhat crazy. Yeah. And we cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. That's all it is.
Not somewhat crazy. The Islamic regime, they're utter lunatics. They're literally lunatics.
We can't let it. You will have a nuclear war in the Middle East, and that war will come here. That war will go to Europe. We cannot let that happen, and it won't happen. It's not going to happen. That's more important than anything else. We can't. I can think of nothing that's more important than the fact that we cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon, and we won't. Right now, we're negotiating.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, I don't know what these back and forths are. I don't know who's reporting that. Again, President Trump has been very clear about his red lines, and his red lines are, once again, no nuclear. United States has to go in and remove whatever nuclear dust is there. The Islamic regime has to end its ballistic missile program. They have to stop their support of their terrorist proxy militia groups in the region, like Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, Hashd-e-Shabi, and others. And of course, they have to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And the Islamic regime has not agreed to any one of those conditions. And so like that, like I don't want to get into the whole analysis, but I would recommend that you go and watch my video here. Let me just pull it up really quick. So go and watch, wait, let me show it here. Yeah, let me get rid of the super chat. So go and watch my video that I posted 2 days ago. It's called The Calm Before the Storm. So, you know, if you just go to my YouTube channel, wait, where is it? So if you go to my YouTube channel, it's in, you know, the playlist, The Goldie Show, or, you know, just go to video. Where is it? Go to videos here. And then you want to watch the video here, The Calm Before the Storm. It only has like 21,000 views, which is a shame because I go into like a 30-minute analysis and I talk about why I think military escalation is inevitable. So go and take a look at that. Go watch that afterwards. I explain a lot and I break it all down. But essentially, at the end of the day, President Trump has 5 objectives, and those objectives have not yet been met. Even though the Islamic regime has been defeated militarily, those objectives have not yet been met, and that's because the Islamic regime is still surviving. And as long as the Islamic regime exists, those objectives will never be met. So that's why I believe President Trump, when he was coming back from Beijing and people were asking him about the military, you know, situation in the Middle East, he said that the United States is about 70 to 75% done. And that additional 25%, I believe, is either weakening the Islamic regime to a point where the Iranian people can rise up and overthrow the Islamic regime and reclaim the country, or the President Trump will just boom them. It's one or the other. But either way, I have a feeling that military escalation is inevitable. So don't listen to like all these like back and forths in the media. Like there's a lot of, you know, clickbait going around. There's a lot of like armchair experts and analysts who are all of a sudden like pontificating on Iran and the Islamic regime. But go watch that video afterwards because this will give you a better understanding. And again, it doesn't have that many views because I'm not like super into like the clickbait, like, oh my God, like, you know, some titles are like, Iran is collapsing, what's next, right? Like, I don't do that. It's more just like a well thought out geopolitical analysis of the situation. So, yeah, but definitely check that out because that's going to explain a lot. Push Up said, while Obama screwed up, wouldn't the helping the Green Movement have just replaced Ahmad with Mousavi? What would have changed? So Obama actually did help the Green Movement. That's the problem. Obama helped the Green Movement. What Iranians were saying is that they wanted to overthrow the Islamic regime. And Obama, instead of choosing to side with the Iranian people, he chose the side of the reformists and the quote unquote moderates, right? So instead of Obama standing with the Iranian people who wanted to overthrow the regime, he instead sent, you know, planes full of cash to the Islamic regime, and then, you know, made the JCPOA, which is a terrible deal that actually helped the Islamic regime accelerate towards building nuclear weapons. So that's the issue there. And that's why Iranian people were chanting, Obama, you're either with us or with them. Because 2009 was the first time that the Iranian people really rose up to try and overthrow the Islamic regime. And then the Green Movement was, it was essentially overtaken by the moderates within the regime and the reformists, and they were the ones who were like, oh no, we don't need to overthrow the regime. We can reform the regime from within. We can just change it. We can make it more moderate, right? And then that's how they fooled you know, Western governments or whatever. And then, of course, what happened is that once they came into power, they were even more brutal than the previous government, and they mass murdered even more people. So, yeah, that's a whole other can of worms. But that's why Iranians, like, we're not calling for reform. We're calling for revolution. We want the end of the Islamic regime, and nothing else will suffice. So, all right, let's continue.
Veteran myself.
Let me go back to
For
the beginning.
deterrence with the three witchmen.
Carolina, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Chairman Mike Rogers, for your correct assessment that the American military is unmatched professionalism as we see with the three witnesses today. How reassuring for the American people and how a deterrence it is to the enemies we have around the world. I've never been more appreciative of the American military than I am today. As a 31-year veteran myself, I'm really grateful that I've had 4 sons serve in Iraq, Egypt, Afghanistan, to see the success. And dictators are on the run. It began, I'm grateful, with dictator Assad in Syria. And he actually, an honor, he declared me an enemy of the state November a year ago. And then with President Trump's election, he fled to Moscow. And now President Trump is giving Syria a chance. The dictator's gone. And then I'm really grateful that the dictatorship in Venezuela has been removed. Again, what extraordinary success. I was really grateful to have the opportunity to let President Trump know how much the American military, American citizens appreciate that he showed that the Russian anti-aircraft capability is not very good, Chinese radar fails, and Cuban mercenaries are expendable. And then you get to the ultimate, and it just should not be misunderstood historically. The elimination of Khomeini and his leadership in world history. I'm not aware of any conflict begun where in the first minute the leadership, dictatorship was eliminated. And how deserving, because he had just murdered 40,000 of his own citizens. And so he deserved what came his way, despite the sympathy of the American media that we should have given notice. With that in mind, too, around the world, from operations in the Western Hemisphere against narco-terrorists to decisive action against the Iranian regime, through Operation Epic Fury to the continued efforts against terrorists and malign actors across Africa and the Middle East, our service members have demonstrated extraordinary courage, precision, and unmatched professionalism. As we confront Iran and its puppets who have attacked and murdered the Israelis, and the terrorist organizations and war criminal Putin, who wants to resurrect the Soviet Union, the failed Soviet Union, annexing Belarus, leaving troops in Moldova, invading Georgia, rigging elections in the Republic of Georgia, where the correct president, a legitimate president, is Shlomo Saakashvili, and then, of course, the invasion of Ukraine with tens of thousands of people who have lost their lives. With that in mind, the growing influence of the Chinese Communist Party, we need to assure that the Central Command and Africa Command have the posture, partnerships, and capabilities needed to defend the homeland, protect our allies, and achieve peace through strength. With that, Admiral Cooper, you have documented really well the success of Operation Epic Fury, which has been a devastating blow to the dictatorship in Iran and ability to murder Israelis and Americans. In your assessment, has this degraded Iran's ability to generate another October 7th was mass murder of Israeli citizens?
Congressman, first, thank you for your own service and that of your children. We
That was a
honor
good
them
question.
today. My assessment from a military perspective is, as we sit here today, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis have been cut off from the decades-long flow of military supplies, and thus mitigating and eliminating any chance of a future October 7th based on the circumstances right now.
And don't forget, guys, so just today, Scott Bessent also announced more sanctions against Hezbollah in Lebanon, right? So let me grab the press release. Where is it? News. Like, this was literally today. So they're not just going after the proxy militia groups, and they're not just going after the Islamic regime from like a boom boom perspective. Operation Economic Fury is still very much active. And like, get this. So today, the U.S. Department of Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control designated 9 individuals in Lebanon for obstructing the peace process in Lebanon and impeding the disarmament of Hezbollah. These Hezbollah-aligned officials include individuals embedded across Lebanon's parliament, military, and security sectors, where they seek to preserve the Iran-backed terrorist group's influence over key Lebanese state institutions. Hezbollah's continued military activity and coercive influence over the Lebanese state undermine the Lebanese government's ability to assert its authority over state institutions and disarm the terrorist group. Hezbollah is a terrorist organization and must be fully disarmed, said Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent. Treasury will continue to take action against officials who have infiltrated the Lebanese government and are enabling Hezbollah to wage its senseless campaign of violence against the Lebanese people and obstruct lasting peace. So this, right, like this here ties in with what Admiral Cooper is talking about when he's referring to the proxies, right? Because it's all connected. And even though there's no boom booms right now, the economic impact is not just continuing, but it's increasing and it's ramping up.
I just agree with your assessment, and it's just remarkable, the achievements of our military. And Secretary Zimmerman, I appreciate your North Carolina heritage, and the department has promoted partners in both the Middle East and Africa to assume more responsibility for their own security. How are we achieving this without creating a vacuum against war criminal Putin or the Chinese Communist Party or the regime in Tehran?
Thank you, Congressman. And as we are working to find operationally independent partners with shared security interests who can responsibly take up the security burden alongside us, we are very clear-eyed about the threats across the CENTCOM and AFRICOM theater that these adversaries present. We have not lost sight of those.
And indeed, Admiral Cooper, we did have allies come to work with us in Operation Economic Fury. Can you identify key allies that were helpful?
Congressman, most notably, we literally serve side by side in this broad Middle East air defense network with 5 Middle East partners: UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar.
Gentleman's
Kuwait,
time's expired. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman
Jordan
from
and Israel.
Connecticut, Mr. Courtney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses. Mr. Zimmerman and Admiral Cooper, in your testimony, Admiral, you in page 3 stated that one of the top priorities of CENTCOM is preserving America's advantage and position of strength relative to China. Mr. Zimmerman, in page 1, you said, secondly, we will deter China in the Indo-Pacific region through strength, not confrontation. So the U.S. Naval Institute publishes a weekly ship tracker, which identifies where our surface ships are located around the world today. So last night's tracker shows that there are 25 warships that are in the Central Command region. 2 more minesweepers are apparently on the way to join the fleet. In Indo-Pacific, we have 1 carrier, the George Washington, which is not actually just being fitted out for deployment. It's not actually underway with a strike force. And we have 1 ARGMU amphibious ship with 3 accompanying vessels. That's 4. That's the total count. That's 52% of the surface of the Earth is in the Indo-Pacific region. And because of this war, we have ships that are home ported in Yokosuka, Pearl Harbor, that are now situated in Central Command. And I guess the question I have for you, Mr. Zimmerman, the National Defense Strategy states that the U.S. will build and sustain a strong denial defense along the first island chain. Right now, I don't know how that's possible, given the fact that so many forces, naval forces, have been concentrated in command. How is this policy, this war, aligned with our national defense strategy, which identified China as still the number one pacing threat.
Congressman, we remain fully committed to the priorities as you have outlined them there, including denial defense and deterring China peace.
With what?
Why are you
Congressman,
interrupting
we
him?
retain the ability to act decisively when and where we need to around the globe. That's all part of the global force management process. The Indo-Pacific theater is not part of my theater, so I'll be careful how broadly I speak. But rest assured, the department is 100% committed to the priorities laid out in the NDS, and we retain the ability to act to implement all those priorities,
Thank you. So, Mr.
including.
Chairman, I would just ask that the USNI tracker dated May 18th be admitted to the record, which again just shows the incredible imbalance that we have right now in terms of the positioning of our fleet. I would also note, Mr. Rogers correctly stated how important it is to build up partnerships. Right now, we have a terrible energy crisis in this country, which Mr. Smith referred to. Eastern Asia is of a totally bigger, more catastrophic magnitude. Countries are implementing 4-day work weeks. They're doing rationing because of the fact that not only is the price is not going up, but because they depend on the Strait of Hormuz, supplies are actually being run down right now. It is not really hard for people to sort of understand who's causing this in terms of countries that we are trying to build partnerships. And frankly, I think that is another strategic harm that this war has created in terms of, again, the number one identified defense challenge that we face, according to Trump's own defense strategy. Admiral Cooper, I have a couple quick questions for you. Is a blockade an act of war?
So we're executing the blockade today consistent with international armed conflict.
Well, the international law actually, in terms of blockades, was established in 1909 at the London Naval Conference, which the U.S. participated in, and the U.S. Senate actually voted to endorse. And it defined blockades as an act of war. Blockades don't work unless you have warships there to enforce them. So of course it's an act of war. I mean, and again, that's black letter maritime law, isn't it?
So I defer to the department as well as the White House in any characterization of how we execute business from a combatant command standpoint. From my perspective, execute the orders as given. And today, the legal umbrella that we're operating under is international armed conflict.
Well, it is really, as I said, not even a question of law or facts. I mean, if we had a Navy blockading the port of New York and New Jersey, we would treat that as an act of war. And the notion that somehow the ceasefire stopped the tolling of the War Powers Act in April when we put a blockade a few days later, which is an act of war, again, fails the legal test, which you don't need to really get intense advice from Office of Legal Counsel. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The chair now recognizes Mr. Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Anderson, in your opening portion of your written statement, you say that AFRICOM, we work with our African partners and our allies on collective security. You then note that you're facing more demanding challenges with ISIS, Al-Qaeda, but also disruptive actors like Russia, China, and Iran. I want to turn to Kenya and Russia. I believe that Kenya is a strong ally. You would agree that Kenya is a strong ally, would you not, General?
Yes, I would.
I've been to Kenya. I've seen and I'm aware of our collective operations, and I was very surprised and very concerned when I saw the New York Times reporting of Kenya's National Intelligence Service report that up to 1,000 Kenyans had been solicited by Russia and had been taken by Russia to fight in Ukraine, and that they had taken them from Kenya and they'd ended up in the front lines of Ukraine. What struck me is not just that there were Russians in Kenya that were operating, but that the enormity of what an operation would be to be able to solicit and obtain and and convince 1,000 Kenyans to leave Kenya, go to Russia, end up in Ukraine fighting, and the structure, just the logistics of that, and the influence campaign that is. Are you familiar with that report? Could you speak about that and really the necessity of us to be able to counter that work and assist the Kenyans in countering Russia in Kenya?
Yes, Congressman, I agree. And it is disturbing how many Africans from across the continent are being recruited by Russia to fight in Ukraine. So it's not solely a Kenyan problem. To the point in Kenya, I agree the concern has been, and I think it was highlighted in that New York Times article as well, is that it's not been clear that they were recruited to go to Ukraine, often using other reasons to recruit them, whether for work or for other jobs, not necessarily articulating the fact that they end up on the front lines in Ukraine. So one of those things that we have done to help counter that is just implement the truth by being able to inform other partners of what's happening has been very powerful.
But this is not just disinformation, them being told what they're going to do and then they're ending up in Ukraine, but that there's this infrastructure that Russia has deployed, and 1,000 out of Kenya is pretty enormous. So you're up against a pretty enormous structure that Russia has deployed within Kenya.
Russia is using many different means in order to recruit folks from across the continent. And you are correct. They do have the network in order to bring them back into Russia.
Thank you. Secretary Zimmerman, first off, congratulations on your answers to the ranking member. They were excellent in the manner in which you handled those questions. In looking at the Admiral's testimony, he indicates that ISIS has been marginalized thanks to the Iraqi security forces and Kurdish Peshmerga. He speaks of some of the accomplishments that occurred. I'm concerned, though, however, that when you look at the overall funding for counter ISIS train and equip funding, what the impact might be for Iraqi Kurdish allies. Could you speak for a moment as to our support for the Iraqi Kurdish allies and what the support might be there?
Congressman, thank you. We have the greatest appreciation for our Iraqi Kurdish partners. It's hard to find a more willing, capable group to work alongside. And we welcome the support.
Yeah, that's not what President Trump says.
Funding that Congress has provided to continue that partnership. This has become particularly stark, and I'll be maybe more general how I speak here. But Operation Epic Fury has shown that the Shia militia groups in Iraq have a lot of agency and independence to act in ways that are harmful to the United States, which has only showcased how helpful the Iraqi Kurdish partners are.
Yo. Oh.
The gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Garamendi.
Awkward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you very much for attending this and your testimony and our appreciation for the hard work and the sacrifices being made by the men and women in our military as they operate in the CENTCOM area. Mr. Zimmerman, the administration formally notified Congress on or about May 5th that hostilities against Iran had been terminated. Is that correct?
My understanding is, as you say, that notification went out.
You have a real difficult time answering questions directly, don't you?
Wow.
So you notified that it was terminated, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, Admiral Cooper, have you reduced the state of preparedness for our troops in the region?
Congressman, consistent with my responsibilities as a combatant commander, I'm prepared to execute a broad range of contingencies. Where we sit today, we're executing a blockade, and we're prepared for further direction, depending on how negotiations go.
So the state of preparedness remains at its highest level?
It does.
Thank you. Are American troops still in harm's way?
Depending on a variety of contingencies, yes.
Are American forces defending against Iranian threats?
When threatened, we always defend ourselves.
Okay. Did CENTCOM fire on Iranian tankers running the blockade on May 6th and 8th?
We fired on, after going through a series of de-escalation measures to get tankers to stop, consistent with the blockade, we disabled those tankers.
So you did fire on Iranian tankers on May 6th and 8th?
We disabled them, yes. We fired on them, and as a result of the fire, they were effectively disabled.
Did the U.S. launch strikes against Iranian military strikes?
Sorry. What's wrong with that? Like, I don't understand this. I don't understand this line of questioning.
Sites on May 7th.
So the United States forces in the execution of defensive mission in moving destroyers from the Arabian Gulf back into the Gulf of Oman were fired upon dozens of times. We defended ourselves.
So
And
American forces were fired upon by Iran, and you fired back.
That's exactly right.
Thank you. Is it your military assessment that hostilities have been ceased since April?
We remain in a ceasefire. Yes.
That's not my question. My question was military assessment that hostilities have ceased since April.
My military assessment is the ceasefire has set the foundation for military hostilities to cease. Iran pushes it.
So the hostilities have continued.
Well, Iran clearly attacked our ships, as you described, dozens of times.
Obviously, the hostilities are continuing. The Islamic regime is literally putting out propaganda of like their TV broadcasters holding firearms and shooting at images of President Trump on live Islamic regime state TV. If that's not considered hostilities, I don't know what is. Like, in what planet does this guy live in? Like, of course the hostilities continue. The Islamic regime is chanting death to America every day. What reality is this guy living in?
Yes, sir.
I'm really very, very sorry for the two of you. You just cannot answer a question correctly and directly, but you're doing the best you can.
Wow.
It's incredible to me that this department has such disregard for the Congress and the U.S. Constitution, that the U.S. military forces are not still engaged in hostilities and still deployed against the war and ignoring the War Powers Act and the Constitution. I'm going to let it go at that. The fact of the matter is that hostilities continue. And I would like to enter into the record, Mr. Chairman, 10 different press releases from the Department of Defense that specifically discuss the continuing hostilities. I'd like now to turn to Africa. General Anderson, you indicated a 75% reduction of military support in Africa. Is that correct from your testimony?
In the posture in West Africa, yes, sir.
Okay. Is USAID a critical element in the African strategy going forward?
So there is a role for targeted aid that supports security and stability. That is part of the many tools that the government uses across Africa.
USAID available to do that?
USAID
exist, does it?
It does not exist today, sir, no.
So, and is there a famine in Sudan?
Conditions are becoming quite dire in Sudan when it comes to food support.
Okay. The fact of the matter is that the U.S. military, question to you, can the U.S. military carry out its activities in Africa without the kind of support that USAID was providing to the African people and African economies and communities?
So the military is still able to continue its execution of military objectives and military activities on the continent.
Gentleman's time has expired. The chair now recognizes himself for some questions. And gentlemen, thanks again for joining us today. Admiral Cooper, I want to begin with you and to get your perspective on the Iranian regime's attacks against civilian targets, both in the Gulf region and neighbors in the entire vicinity. We know historically they've used proxies like Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, to maim, torture, and kill innocent civilians, including Americans.
Yep.
We know that now the regime has blood directly on their hands and things that they've done most recently, and we've seen that. It's pretty alarming as to how they are escalating things within that realm. To me, it's pretty clear that the destabilizing force in the Middle East is Iran, and they intend to continue that. There's also very distinct differences between how the United States operates and how Iran operates in this time of conflict in that region. I wanted, though, to rewind a little bit and go back to where things started, and that was last December, and get your perspective on how you were monitoring.
So I just also want to add, like, I've seen your comments about U.S. aid, and yeah, like I find it wild that he's, asking about U.S. aid. Like, first of all, this is the American military, completely separate from U.S. aid, and U.S. aid, it turned out, was just basically a slush fund for terrorist groups and, NGOs and commies and like the woke progressive left to just take advantage of American taxpayer dollars. Like, U.S. aid was one of the most corrupt programs out there.
The anti-regime protests and efforts there in Iran to conflict in that region. I wanted, though, to rewind a little bit and go back to where things started, and that was last December, and get your perspective on how you were monitoring the anti-regime protests and efforts there in Iran. What was your assessment of that? What did you find, and what did you see? And then, how many civilians do you assess were killed or hurt in those counter efforts by the government against its civilians?
Congressman, we'd assess that number to be in the tens of thousands of civilians killed by the regime.
Okay. And what was your assessment when you?
And guys, I'm telling you right now, the 40,000 number, that's a minimum. That, like, it's 40,000 minimum. Some estimates actually put the number somewhere between 70 to 90,000. We just don't know. We don't know the actual amount because the Islamic regime has cut off the internet. A lot of people are still missing, and they've also silenced a lot of people from speaking out. So 40,000 is like the lower end. It's much higher than that. It's let me put it this way. There's a reason that the internet is shut down. There's a reason that it's now been 83 days and the Islamic regime still has not brought the internet back up because they don't want the truth to go out there. And it's incredibly shameful that there are people who are denying this very real slaughter and massacre of the Iranian people.
Evaluated that back in December as far as what the Iranian government was doing against its civilians.
As things started in December, you could, at the infancy of protests, you could see Iran initially, the regime initially addressing this in the teens and low hundreds, eventually evolved by January into the killing of tens of thousands.
Okay.
Yeah, and for those of you who have been watching Iran Revolution live from the beginning, from December 28, that's exactly what we saw. We saw, very, very little, and then all of a sudden, they shut down the internet, and then they mass slaughtered over 40,000 innocent, unarmed Iranians in 2 days alone. All right, let me go to some of the super chats, and then we'll continue. So Oracle of Hecate says, I pray this will all be over before Madyoshahem Gahanbar 1 month from today. May the people of Iran be able to share meals together in peace. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we're all hoping for a resolution sooner rather than later. From your lips to God's ears. And Wyatt says, Democrats are trying to get a judge to step in and rule on the WPR. They want to end the fighting on the grounds that the conflict is an illegal war. I know about that, but based on my understanding, and I've dug into this a little bit, and I've looked at, I've researched a little bit. My understanding is that no court is going to touch this. No court is prepared to touch the War Powers Act. So let's see what happens. But even if they're going to do this through the judicial process, that's something that takes years. So it's not like a judge is going to make a determination tomorrow, because, it has, it has to go to the court, and then, there's going to be, delays and, whatever. And then whatever decision or the outcome is, if there's a decision or outcome, then that's going to be appealed, and then that's going to take more time. So what the Dems are doing, the Dems already know that this is going to be a very long and drawn out process. They're doing it more for the PR aspect of it than for the practicality of it, right? Because from a practical perspective, I have a feeling the conflict is going to be over well before the court makes a decision. And then whatever decision the court makes, that's going to be appealed regardless. So, oh wait, is this something that would go straight to the Supreme Court? Is that what you're saying? It would go straight to the Supreme Court? Well, if that's the case, then I don't think the Supreme Court is going to even touch it, right? Because the Supreme Court, they have refused to comment on this since it was introduced. So I honestly don't see the courts being able to stop this, because that would be a breach. There's division of powers for a reason. There's division of powers for a reason. And, there is a very strong argument to be made that that particular act is unconstitutional. And it's there to basically be a thorn in the side of, whatever president and whatever party is in power at that time. So I don't see the court being able to prevent President Trump from doing what he wants to do, because ultimately he is the commander in chief, right? And the commander in chief makes the final call. That's how I see this playing out. Mark Levin actually spoke about this, and I shared that. President Trump even posted it on his Truth Social. Do you remember that post by Mark Levin where he literally spoke about this? Let me pull it up for you guys, because Mark Levin, he can explain it much better than me. I'm just kind of going off of memory from what Mark Levin has said. So give me a moment. Let me pull it. Here we go. So this is it. So this is what Mark Levin posted. Come on, what is this? There we go. How does this work? Come on. Why is this not working? Okay, here we go. So, oh my gosh, this is so annoying. What is happening? Okay, guys, sorry. This is just, I want to zoom in and it's giving me issues. Wow, it's not even letting me zoom in. Okay, let me do this instead. Open image in new tab. Okay, here we go. Now it's working. So this is what Mark Levin wrote about the War Powers Act. And President Trump shared this. So I know I've shared this before, but let me share it again because it provides a bit more context into what I'm talking about. And, Mark Levin knows this stuff way more than me. So Mark Levin wrote, the truth about war powers, declaring war, making war, the Constitution, and the War Powers Act. Fact, no president of either party has accepted the constitutionality of the 1973 War Powers Act. Every president has viewed it as a violation of separation of powers. The president's Article 2 plenary power to run foreign policy and his authority as the commander-in-chief. Fact, the Supreme Court has never ruled on the act's constitutionality and likely never will. Indeed, Congress itself is split on the issue, with Democrats supporting Democrat presidents and Republicans supporting Republican presidents. The War Powers Act is nothing but a political tool used by members of Congress, typically against a president of the opposite party. And their arguments mostly switch from one side to the other depending on who is president. Fact: the first draft of the Constitution provided that Congress would have the power to make war. The delegates at the Constitutional Convention rejected that language and changed it to declare war, intentionally watering it down because they did not believe a body with numerous members was institutionally capable of making such decisions. Fact: to declare war does not result in making war. Example: if Congress were to declare war and a president refused to accept such a declaration, Congress cannot force the commander-in-chief to execute such a war. Congress declaring war, which it has done a mere 11 times, mostly during World War II, or as Ilhan Omar would say, World War XI, since the nation's founding, is essentially the highest means by which it can proclaim its support for a war. It is not a condition precedent to making war and never has been. Fact: the only power Congress has to prevent a military operation is the power of the purse. That said, a president who, as commander-in-chief, has authorized military action will not sign such a bill, for it is intended to prevent what he has already commanded. Therefore, Congress would need a 2/3 majority of both houses to override his veto. In other words, a president has broad power to take military action. Fact: other than the vice president, the president is the only federal official elected by the entirety of the people. In addition to the institutional impossibility of war powers and decisions in the hands of a multi-member body like Congress, the president is the only official who was elected to, among other things, serve as commander-in-chief. So I hope that gives you a little bit more context and an understanding into how and why I think the War Powers Act, nothing's going to happen. I have a feeling that that's not going to stop it. So whatever the Dems are doing, it's pretty much all for show. But again, you can find that post on President Trump's Truth Social. All right, let's continue.
Very good. Let me ask too, since the conflict has begun, how many drones and missiles has Iran launched? And how many of those have targeted civilian sites? And can you give us some examples of the civilian targets that have been struck by those drones and missiles?
Yeah, Congressman, I think the specific number of drones and missiles are best addressed in a classified forum, which follows this. I'll talk about there. But what I can say here is Iran
Can you just give us orders of magnitude, hundreds, thousands?
Thousands.
Okay.
What I can say here is Iran deliberately targeted civilians in the Middle East at least 1,000 times. We've seen many of this play out on TV. Restaurants in Bahrain, restaurants in neighborhoods in UAE, the same thing in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. We saw before our very eyes on TV, you saw it yourself, yes. Cluster munitions going off over Tel Aviv, targeting civilians. It was crystal clear.
How many civilians do you estimate have been killed, or casualties, we'll call them in general, which includes killed and injured, by these attacks since combat operations have begun?
At least 300 killed and injured, sir.
Okay, very good. Do you believe that the regime's attacks on civilian targets are indiscriminate? Are they focused? Are they purposeful? Do you see a commonality in the things that they're doing in defining these targets and going after them?
The 1,000 attacks were deliberate.
Okay. Was there any rhyme or reason that you saw behind what Iran was doing and who they were targeting? Was there any purpose behind that, or was it just indiscriminate?
I see. I think you saw a terror regime executing terror-like attacks, living up to their billing more than 1,000 times. The only rhyme or reason and consistency was against innocent civilians.
Gotcha. Let me ask this. You bring up innocent civilians, and that I think is a critical point here. The regime kind of talks both ways, talks about wanting to settle things and wanting to bring their country back to a stable state, yet with them indiscriminately targeting innocent human lives, the regime seems not to have any regard for innocent civilians and is wanting to continue its theocracy there. Give me your perspective about where you think the regime has been when all this began back in December and where it is today. Has that place in their mindset changed based on this, or are they still on the path of indiscriminately targeting civilians?
They remain on the same path, Congressman. We saw them kill tens of thousands of their own people, and since the ceasefire, we've seen them hang dozens of people. Gotcha. Just yesterday, you saw the chief of police proudly announce that they arrested 6,500 Iranians for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, that's really important. So the fact that Admiral Brad Cooper knows about this and is sharing this information, that lets me know that their intel is obviously, I mean, no one's ever questioning American military intel, but the fact that they're speaking about this, right? Like, this shows that they know what's going on. And if Admiral Brad Cooper knows all of this, of course, President Trump knows all of this as well. So they're obviously monitoring Islamic Regime state TV, and they probably have people on the ground or whatever the case might be. And yeah, it's true. A couple days ago, the Islamic Regime announced that they've just mass arrested 6,500 people, and the mass arrests continue because the Islamic Regime right now, it's in a death spiral. It's going scorched earth. It's slowly collapsing. And right now what they're doing is they're trying to take down as many Iranians with them as they can until they just collapse. But yeah, I mean, guys, this is the reality of living in a totalitarian dictatorship, right? I mean, for us Iranians, right? Like nothing surprises us because we have experienced every horror that you can think of. We've experienced it, we've witnessed it, we've seen it, we've lived through it, right? But for many of you who have been blessed to live in a free and democratic society, I mean, just imagine if just imagine the news headline in the United States. Let's say like you wake up and all of a sudden the headline is, United States government mass arrests 6,500 people for no reason, right? Like it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling, and yet that's the daily reality in occupied Iran. And the things that they do are so cruel and so inhumane that for many people, it's hard to even process that something like that is possible. And I think that's one of the reasons why many people just sort of tune out, because what they do is so incomprehensible. It's so difficult to understand or to even visualize that people are like, no, this must be fake. There's no way. Like, this is too crazy, right? Because they've never lived through it. They've never experienced it, right? But this has been the reality of Iranians for the last 47 years.
Congressman, we saw them kill tens of thousands of their own people, and since the ceasefire, we've seen them hang dozens of people.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, you saw the chief of police proudly announce that they arrested 6,500 Iranians for no reason.
Mm-hmm. So none of this has changed within the regime. They're still trying to suppress their own people, still trying to have that iron fist on their population there to keep them under control, regardless of what happens elsewhere.
I completely agree.
Very good. With that, I'd yield back, and now we'll go to Mr. Norcross.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank the witnesses for coming here today. Much discussion about the most relevant issue here. That's the war in Iran and the reason why we're there, or the reason listed. But I think we all can agree that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Yeah.
That is almost at every beginning of a statement, the first thing we talk about. And certainly we understand that. So, Admiral Cooper, in your testimony, pages 6 and 7, you outline the assets that CENTCOM has destroyed in Iran. Your assessments that we have destroyed approximately 85% of the ballistic missiles, drones, and naval industrial base, preventing their ability to execute operations, stunt their ability to reconstitute their force. Despite that assessment of degraded capabilities, what wasn't happening prior to this war is now happening, and that's the Strait of Hormuz being closed. Can you give us the difference between that assessment, which you laid out to us, and how the straits are now closed?
Congressman, thank you very much for that. I think these are two separate matters. There is a linkage that I'd like to discuss in a closed forum for sure. With respect to their conventional capability, if I zoom out and directly to the ranking member's point, from a military strategy perspective, we absolutely derailed decades of what Iran was trying to achieve with their ballistic missiles, their nuclear program, and the proxies. That's one piece of it. I think equally important is their ability to build and reconstitute. That's been eliminated. This will not. So that part's been eliminated. On the Strait of Hormuz itself, sir, to your question, I think there's several important factors here. The blockade itself, which we are controlling, nothing is going in or going out. On the Strait, there are a lot of it's a complex environment. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs characterized it this way. Iran's capability is significantly degraded. So their voice is very loud.
So why is it closed?
As we sit here today, there are low volumes of ships that are going in and out. Factors, we had 2 U.S. flag ships go out just last week.
If you look at your gas prices, nobody's thinking that Strait of Hormuz is open. That is the real measure that we go with. But let me go on. Excuse me. In the wake of Operation Midnight Hammer, Congress, House Armed Services Committee, and most importantly, American people were assured that Iran's nuclear capabilities and their mouth were completely destroyed. The president's own words, completely and totally obliterated. This assessment was why that operation was done. If it is completely destroyed, how is it that the issue of a nuclear weapon is still the #1 focus and we're not addressing that?
Congressman, I think anything.
What do you mean it's not being addressed? President Trump is addressing the nuclear situation every single day. Every single day, President Trump is saying we cannot allow the Islamic regime to have a nuclear weapon. Meanwhile, the Islamic regime is going out and going, like, we want nuclear weapons. Like, are you stupid or are you dumb? Like, I don't understand. I don't understand this question. Like, listen to that was just a bunch of like word salad. Like, he's just like putting out whatever that comes into his head. Like what an idiot. Like, what is this?
We're completely destroyed. The president's own words, completely and totally obliterated. This assessment was why that operation was done. If it is completely destroyed, how is it that the issue of a nuclear weapon is still the #1 focus and we're not addressing that?
The issue is the #1 focus because the Islamic regime has not agreed to not stop trying to achieve a nuclear weapon. Like, how? Like, are you dumb? The Islamic regime is saying that it is our Allah-given right to build a nuclear weapon and to boom boom everyone. Like, that's what the Islamic regime is literally saying. So, like, how is it President Trump's fault that he's dealing with a bunch of raving lunatics who, even though they've been militarily defeated, they're still going out and they're like, Allahu Akbar, we're victorious, we're going to build a nuclear weapon. How is that President Trump's fault? Like, these people are lunatics. They're not rational actors. Any rational, normal actor would have already acknowledged defeat. But the Islamic regime is like a Shia 7th century cult of death.
Congressman, I think anything regarding the Iranian nuclear program is best placed in a classified
Well, these are words that
environment,
the
and I'd be
president
happy to talk
has
about it.
used. So if it has been destroyed, why are we in this war? Because
Because it's not about just being destroyed, it's about making sure that the Islamic regime does not rebuild. You idiot. It's about making sure that the Islamic regime does not rebuild the nuclear facilities, does not try to acquire nuclear weapons. It's not just about destroying what was already there, it's about preventing future nuclear ambitions. And the Islamic regime has pretty much said that they're never going to stop trying to acquire a nuclear bomb.
destroyed means it's not coming back. Your actual publication.
No, it is coming back.
If it has been destroyed, why are we in this war? Because destroyed means it's not coming back.
No, that's not what it means, you idiot. Destroyed just means it's destroyed right now. That doesn't mean it's not coming back. Like, wow. So like, based on your logic, I don't know, if like there's a pothole in a road, then the road is destroyed because there's a pothole, and the road is destroyed and it's never coming back. Like, that's basically his logic here. Like, what a stupid question.
Your actual publications talk about the term destroyed, that it cannot be reused. It is completely useless. So if it has been destroyed, why is a nuclear weapon the number one issue?
Again, sir, I think anything regarding Iranian nuclear weapons capability is best discussed in a classified form, and I'm happy to talk about it.
So I have to assume by that statement that either A, it has not been completely destroyed, and that's why we have to go back in the classified, and I get that. Because if it was, we wouldn't be at war. With that, I'll yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Scott, is now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm going to read this just for the benefit of the American citizens and others that are watching. This is from Dan Zimmerman's testimony. The Center of Islamic Terrorism has shifted from the Middle East to Africa.
Yeah.
There's another statement in here that says Islamic terrorists in Africa are both capable and intent of striking the U.S. homeland. Is that correct, Mr. Zimmerman?
Correct.
General Anderson, your statement, terrorism remains the most acute threat in Africa. U.S. AFRICOM's area of responsibility has become the center of gravity for global jihadism, with West Africa accounting for over 51% of global terror-related deaths in 2024. ISIS West Africa, JNIM, Al-Qaeda, pretty powerful paragraph written there that I hope some people will take heart to. What can AFRICOM, as you know, I spent a fair amount of time on the continent between this committee and another one, not do today that it could do 5 years ago? And what is being done to correct that?
Congressman, I think the best example I can give is that 5 years ago when I was commander of Special Operations Command Africa, we rescued American hostage Philip in 96 hours. Largely because we had access, placement, and relationships. Today, Kevin Rideout is on day 209 of his captivity because we do no longer have the same level of relationships and access that we had before. We are working to rebuild that access and engage with those folks in those different countries to address the common threat.
So we lost Airbase 101 and 201 that did tremendous damage to our ISR cover. I went to Nigeria. I spoke with, I know, Minister Tumba and several others. And what was relayed to me is that they didn't appreciate the lecture that they got from Secretary Fay and Dr. Wallander at that time. And that is why we were asked to leave Nigeria, is that because we did not respect the sovereignty of that country under the previous administration. Is that your understanding?
Congressman, I can't speak to that exact meeting. I can address that sovereignty is a very important aspect to all African countries.
It was made very clear to me that when the United States was a guest in a country that we did not need to think that we could come into a conference room in a leadership circle and lecture them about what we would and would not do in their country. And I'm concerned about the loss of the relationships that occurred because of the arrogance and the lecturing that occurred many years ago. And I do think Secretary Rubio is trying to regain that credibility with those countries. I was in Burkina Faso not too long ago. The leadership in that country was very pointed. They want trade, not aid, which I think is where the administration is headed, and that they had just expelled the French and they were not going to trade one master for another master is literally word for word what the way it was put to me from the leadership of Burkina Faso. Is that consistent with what you hear? They are not going to trade one master for another?
Congressman, that is consistent with what I hear across the region.
So with the loss of access in Niger and the growing Russian influence in the Sahel, what are the most urgent basing and overflight gaps, and what authorities or resources do you need to restore operational reach?
Congressman, the biggest concern I have is the growing black hole of intelligence in the Sahel with the withdrawal of the French and much of the European partners. As you mentioned, our withdrawal from Niger, it is very difficult for us to provide adequate INW. So what we are looking at is investments in non-traditional ISR capabilities as well as traditional intelligence surveillance in order to layer these. And that includes open source as well as exquisite. And so building that network in order to illuminate what's happening in the Sahel is our top priority.
General Anderson, in my last 3 seconds, I want to read one other sentence from your statement. The PRC sees Africa as...
Guys, for people who are asking about Africa, Africa is important because a lot of the instability and terrorism in Africa is because of Islamic terrorism and jihad. So a lot of these like Islamic terrorist groups that exist in the Middle East, they also exist in Africa. So yeah, like the vast majority of instability in Africa today is literally because of jihad and Islamic terrorism. So Africa is 100% connected to the Middle East and to Islamic terrorism. And, you know, I mean, just as an example, look at Somalia, right? Somalia is like a failed state and it's like a Muslim country that's controlled by Islamic terrorists. And look at what's happening in Michigan, right? The, you know, mass importation of the Somali, you know, people, and look what that's done to the United States. So yeah, you guys should be concerned about Africa 100% because Islamic terrorism is also coming into the United States through Africa. And if you guys recall, I mean, well, let me find the video because this is the video that we played earlier today, where a whole bunch of like African, you know, Muslim terrorist prostitutes are in occupied Iran and sorry, Minnesota, not Michigan. You're right. Well, there's Dearborn and then there's Minnesota as well, I guess. But you know, there's a bunch of like African Muslim jihadi prostitutes who are in occupied Iran right now. Right? Let me pull this up. So look at this, guys. Look at this. Look at all these African prostitutes, right? These Muslim prostitutes that the Islamic regime imported into Iran, and they're bragging about the fact that you know, they're there to replace the Iranian population. Yeah, right? So this is why you guys need to be concerned about Africa, because Africa is currently one of the biggest places where like jihad is happening.
از کدوم کشوری؟ عمان، سنگال، غنا، کنیا، بورکینا فاسو، ساحل عاج، بورکینا فاسو، نیجریه، تانزانیا، کنگو، مالی.
Right, so then this you know, African jihadi Muslim prostitute, she says to the other African jihadi Muslim prostitute behind her, like, what's your message to the Iranian people? And then this jihadi prostitute is like, I'm not a traitor. You're not even Iranian. You're not even Iranian. So why are you in occupied Iran supporting the Islamic regime? You're not even Iranian. You're not even Iranian, right? But guys, this is part of the whole Islamic caliphate, right? So when people like Marco Rubio and President Trump and Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham and Mark Levin and others, when they talk about how the Islamic regime's revolution is expansionary, this is what we're talking about, because it's all about jihad. It's all about expanding their Islamic caliphate. And so there are literally non-Iranians in Africa who support the Islamic regime, who support the people that are murdering me and my family and my people, right? These foreigners are there to replace the native population of Iranians. It's really it's messed up. It's messed up. So yeah, absolutely. Like, people need to focus on Africa, because what's happening in Africa is directly related to the Islamic regime. Like to said it. Look at her, like this garbage prostitute is holding the flag of the Islamic regime. Like this is the reality that we're living in right now, where a bunch of Muslim jihadi terrorists from Africa are being imported to Iran, and they're waving the flag of the Islamic regime. Like, guys, this is what Islamo-Nazi colonization looks like, right? Guys, these are the same people that are mass migrating to the United States. The only difference is, in the United States, you still have the Republicans to kind of fight them off, right? But in occupied Iran, they have free reign, right? In occupied Iran, they've just taken over. Garbage people. And when I refer to them as like the African jihadi Muslims, I'm referring to them, I'm pissed off that they're jihadi Muslims, right? This isn't about African people. Because the Nigerian Christians, for example, are being persecuted by the Muslim jihadi Nigerian terrorists, right? So it's the fact that jihad is expanding in Africa, and now you have all these Islamic terrorist groups in Africa that are not only killing African people, but they're being imported to Iran, and they're murdering Iranian people as well, and they're slowly replacing our population. Like, she literally says, long live the Islamic Republic. Blech! Garbage person. We're going to deport every single one. We're going to deport every single one. Like they're all holding the garbage flag of the Islamic regime. Right? So to people who are asking why are people focusing on Africa? That's why. That's why we need to focus on Africa, because Africa is being colonized by the Islamic regime, and modern day jihad is pretty much happening in Africa right now. All right, so let's continue. Oh, wait, let me go to a few of the super chats and then we'll continue. Kuda says, "Co not be ust does not mean revolt." Sorry, I don't know what you're saying there. I apologize. Zaykada says, "You're amazing. Keep up the good work." Yeah, I don't really appreciate appearances, like comments on my appearance, but thanks, I guess. But my appearance is completely irrelevant to what I'm doing, which is I'm focusing on geopolitics. So But, thanks, I guess. Wiley Coyote says, Goldie, look up George Washington's third vision of America. He had 3. The first 2 have occurred. The dark cloud comes from Africa and Europe. Wow. Okay. I'll look into that. Let me write that down. And make a note of that. George Washington's third vision of America. All right. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I will definitely look into that. And then Charles Bradford gifted a membership. Thank you. Very kind of you. I appreciate that. Okay, let's continue.
It's their second continent and critical to their economic and military future. We as Americans need the relationships with the continent of Africa. The critical minerals, as well as the ability to fight terrorism, is contingent upon our relationships over there. I have tremendous faith in you, General Anderson, and I look forward to working with you to restore that access. I yield.
Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Moulton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Admiral Cooper, you keep using the term significantly degraded. Last summer, we were told that Iran's nuclear weapons program was obliterated. Can you clarify the distinction between obliterated and significantly degraded?
Congressman, again, I think appropriate to talk about anything regarding the Iranian nuclear program.
No, I'm not asking you to talk about the Iran nuclear program. I'm asking you to talk about English language. What's the difference between obliterated and...
What a rude person. Like, what is wrong with you? You're asking him to talk about the English language? Like, how condescending is that? Wow. Like, could you imagine speaking to like a 4-star general that way? Oh my gosh. So rude.
significantly degraded? Are they the same?
Congressman, anything regarding the nuclear program?
I'm not asking you to talk about the nuclear program, Admiral. I'm asking you to answer a question that applies to a lot of things beyond the nuclear program. You've also said that their ballistic missile program was significantly degraded. What does that mean?
The specific numbers are best, as you know from your own.
Well, President Trump's own national security strategy, which he signed in December.
Wow, like he's not even letting him answer the question. He's just like interrupting. Wow, like he literally just wants like his 10-second clip to help him get like reelected. Like what a loser. Guys, this is why like I just I'm like a political nerd, but at the same time, like a lot of politicians, they're literally garbage people. And I know that from firsthand experience because I've had to deal with a lot of garbage people when I was a politician myself.
December, 5 months ago, used the exact same phrase, significantly degraded. So if this was true back then, 5 months ago, then why did we start this war? Was he lying to us then?
What?
Congressman, from a military perspective, anything regarding
Admiral, are you familiar with General? Are you familiar with General Westmoreland?
I'm very familiar, Congressman.
He's well known for talking about body counts. Now, when I think about you in this war, I always think about how you always got up there and would say everything's going according to plan. So let me just ask, Admiral, where was closing the strait in the plan?
I'm happy to discuss the specific operational aspects.
So did you just not anticipate that? Do you not think that Iran could do that? Or was that part of the plan here?
Congressman,
for 250 years,
you're not even letting him answer the question. Let him answer the question.
Under every previous president, the Strait of Hormuz has been open. So why is it closed under your watch?
Congressman, I've traveled through the Strait of Hormuz probably 100 times. I'm intimately familiar with it as a combatant commander.
So why is it closed? If you're so familiar with it, did you not anticipate that Iran might
answer the question? If I may ask with respect, with all due respect, my responsibility as a combatant commander is to lay out all the options, present those to the Secretary and the President. They make policy level decisions.
So you presented
the operational aspect.
So Admiral, you presented the reality that Iran might close the strait to the President and the Secretary of Defense.
Anything that I discuss with respect to
Okay, well, let's go back to the plan. Where
He's not even let him answer the question. Like, why won't you even let him answer your garbage questions? Like, as soon as Admiral Cooper opens his mouth to say something, the guy just interrupts and goes on like another like weird rant. Oh my gosh. Like, I'm literally getting chunky yogurt vibes here. I'm literally getting chunky yogurt vibes right now.
was begging China for help opening the strait part of the plan?
Wait, what?
To the president and the secretary of defense.
Anything that I discuss with respect to
Okay, well, let's go back to the plan. Where was begging China for help opening the strait part of the plan?
When did President Trump beg China?
So from a military perspective,
there are multiple reports now public that Iran has already reconstituted many of its bombed out missile sites. Was that part of the plan too?
Those reports are inaccurate.
Okay. I will actually give you credit for regime change. I know that was part of the plan. You've replaced an 86-year-old in failing health with a fatwa against producing nuclear weapons, with a more hardline guy.
What an idiot! Oh my gosh, does this guy actually think that the fatwa against building nuclear weapons was a thing? Are you stupid? Really? Oh my gosh. So this guy legitimately believes that because Khamenei said, "Oh, we're not going to build nuclear weapons," that it wasn't going to happen? Like, this guy's literally retarded. He's retarded. What? Oh, you think because the supreme dictator said we're not going to build nuclear weapons and all of a sudden he's trustworthy? You're assuming that the supreme dictator is more trustworthy than the president of the United States? Oh my gosh. This guy's literally basing his entire line of questioning on a freaking fatwa. As if the fatwa means something. Wow. Like, okay, buddy, since you want to appear so knowledgeable and you're throwing out terms like fatwa, like maybe you should learn this word, taqiyya, because Islamic terrorists lie. So this fatwa that you're relying upon is actually taqiyya. It means it's a lie. It's fake. It's part of the deception that the Islamic terrorists use in order to advance their jihad against the rest of the world. You idiot. Wow. Wow, he's literally relying on this fatwa. Oh my gosh. Wow, what an idiot.
Those reports are inaccurate.
Okay. I will actually
believe
give you credit for regime change. I know that was part of the plan. You've replaced an 86-year-old in failing health with a fatwa against producing nuclear weapons, with a more hardline guy in his 50s who, in case he wasn't hardline enough, you killed his immediate family.
Whoa! Oh, okay. So Buddy thinks that Mujtaba Khamenei, the gay Ayatollah cardboard supreme dictator with no sign of life. We don't know if the guy's alive or dead. We don't know if he's in a coma or disfigured or injured or whatever. We literally have not seen or heard of him at all, right? Now, apparently, this guy is more hardline and more like severe or something. We don't even know if he's alive, you idiot. The guy's probably in a coma. For all we know, he's in a vegetative brain dead state. Wow, like, what reality are you living in? What reality are you living in? There's not even proof of life. The guys, Mujtaba didn't even show up to his own swearing-in ceremony. Guys, he did not even show up to his own swearing-in ceremony because he's probably in a coma or dead. Like, how is that showing more power? Like, how is that showing victory? Oh my gosh. Look at this. You can't make this up. You cannot make this up. Look at this, guys. This is, where is it? Where the heck is it? All right. Like this is the guy. This is Mujtaba, guys. For those of you who might not have seen this, this is Mujtaba Khamenei's swearing-in ceremony. Okay, so this is on March 9, 2026. This is the ceremony where he was, sworn in as the new supreme dictator of the Islamic regime. Look at this. So that's his, dead terrorist garbage dad. And look, there's a picture frame of him. So the supreme dictator did not even attend his own swearing-in ceremony. They brought in a picture of him, literally a framed photo. And how can you look at this and think in any way, shape, or form that the Islamic regime is better off or stronger or more hardline or whatever? The guy didn't even show up to his own swearing-in ceremony. They brought a photo of him. In fact, what's really messed up is that this looks like he's dead, because this sort of photo and this sort of like portrait and frame is what you use at a funeral. So if anything, it looks like both the garbage terrorist dad is dead, and then the gay Ayatollah himself, he's also dead. Like, how is this in any way, shape, or form projecting an image of power? And then, everyone's like, whatever. Like, it's just, the whole thing is insane. Like, these people are literally insane. It's a demonic jihadi death cult, right? Like, these are not rational, normal actors. Like, what is it? And then, you know what? Like, I bet you this, this Durka is saying to like the other Durka, he's like, where's Mujtaba? Where's Mujtaba? Where is he? And then the other guy's like, just wing it. We have a photo of him that's good enough. Just wing it. Right? Like, look at this. The guy's just like, where the heck is Mujtaba?
پس از بررسی‌های دقیق و گسترده و استفاده از ظرفیت اصل 108 قانون اساسی مطابق وظیفه شرعی و اعتقاد به حضور در محضر خداوند متعال در اجلاسی.
And then here the guy's basically saying, like, in the presence of like Allah and I don't know, whatever other garbage nonsense, Mujtaba Khamenei is sworn in as the new supreme dictator of the Islamic Regime.
فوق‌العاده امروز آیت الله سید مجتبی حسینی خامنه‌ای را بر اساس
Like, look at this. It's not even him. It's a photo of him. He didn't even show up to his own swearing-in ceremony. And then everyone's like, Allahu Akbar, we're victorious, we're winning. And then that idiotic Democrat dude is like, oh, look, the regime is more hardline and America is losing and the Islamic regime is winning. Like, in what reality do the Democrats live in? Like, how can any normal, rational, sane person look at these scenes and just, come to the conclusion that the Islamic regime is winning? Like, that's not even rationally possible. That's not even possible. Like, if the Islamic regime was in a position of power, the supreme dictator himself would show up to his swearing-in ceremony. And yet, we have not even seen a sign of life, right? We haven't seen him in person. We haven't seen him on TV. We haven't seen a pre-recorded message or video. We haven't heard his voice. We haven't even seen a photo of him. We haven't even seen a photo. Everything is AI generated. Like, guys, I want you to imagine how insane this is. So imagine at like a presidential swearing in ceremony, instead of the actual president coming out, they bring out like a portrait of the president, and someone just, swears in the president of the United States on his behalf. And then everyone's like, we're so powerful. We're victorious. Like, it's insane. It's wild. It's wild. And yet this weird Democrat, this like retarded man is somehow like trying to make it seem as if the Islamic regime is more powerful than before because the evil old man was replaced with the younger hardliner son. Oh, are you kidding me? We don't even know if he's alive. Like, in what reality do these people, guys? These people are so like, they're so like just blinded by their Trump derangement syndrome that they have literally lost all touch with reality. Like they're not even on another planet or another galaxy. They're not even in another universe. Like these people are in another dimension, right? Like we're talking like the Democrats are literally in like another dimension. That's how far away they are from reality right now. Like this line of questioning is wild.
Give you credit for regime change. I know that was part of the plan. You've replaced an 86-year-old in failing health with a fatwa against producing nuclear weapons, with a more hardline guy in his 50s who, in case he wasn't hardline enough, you killed his immediate family. Was that part of the plan? Is that the regime change you wanted?
Congressman, we were given very specific military objectives to degrade Iran's power projection capability. That's exactly what we did.
Okay, so in the course of doing that, you also lifted the oil sanctions on Iran, giving them about $14 to $16 billion.
No, that never happened, you idiot. The sanctions were never lifted. The sanctions were lifted on the oil that was already in the Persian Gulf that was going out, and the money didn't go to the Islamic regime. The money is literally being held in trust on hold for the Iranian people so that when Iran is free, that money can go to the Iranian people. You idiot, do not understand how this works? Like, do not understand? Like, that's so stupid.
Exactly what we did.
Okay, so in the course of doing that, you also lifted the oil sanctions on Iran, giving them about $14 to $16 billion.
And by the way, why are you even asking Admiral Brad Cooper about a decision that U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent made? Like, this questions about the economy should be for Scott Bessent, not Admiral Brad Cooper. Like, he has nothing to do with the economic side of things, you idiot. Like, why are you asking a military guy about economic sanctions? Like, he's so stupid.
They can buy a lot of ballistic missiles for that. Was that part of the plan? Lifting oil sanctions on them in the course of the conflict? They kill 14 Americans, we lift oil sanctions on them?
That's not what happened.
As you know, sir, the U.S. military does not lift sanctions. That's a policy decision.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out where it was part of the plan. On March 5th, you talked about how you built the most integrated air missile defense or air defense system in the Middle East. And yet, well into the war, you had to ask Ukraine for help with defenses against drones.
That's not accurate.
Okay. What about oil prices, gas prices?
Why are you asking Admiral Brad Cooper about economic policy and global market prices? What does the military have to do with that, you idiot? Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I see this comment here. Yeah, Brad Cooper, like Admiral Cooper, looks like he wants to punch him in the face. I agree. Like, oh my gosh. Like the look on Admiral Cooper's face is like, I don't know how you got elected, but you're everything that's wrong with this country.
Oil prices going up 56%, part of the plan?
Congressman, as you know, from a military perspective, we don't deal in oil and gas prices. I defer to the appropriate authorities within the government.
Okay, so since none of this seems to be part of the plan, what's the plan now? What's the
Why would he tell you the plan? He's not going to tell you the plan, because if he tells you the plan, the Islamic regime will know the plan. They're not going to give away their military plans in advance. You idiot. That's not how this works. Wow. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. Let me go to some of the comments and then we'll continue. So Corey Radcliffe says, appreciate your hard work. Goldie, keep up the good work. Thank you. Appreciate that. Tom for Life says, this guy is the final boss of the hearing. Oh my gosh. Guys, I don't even know if he could be the final boss, but we're literally only an hour and 15 minutes in. Yeah, but he could be the final boss. Like, he's just, oh my gosh. I think he's worse than the first one. Bob Nugget says these types of questions only exist to fabricate a narrative. Exactly, 100%. Yeah. I've been in their shoes before. Like, I have participated in these sorts of things. You're absolutely right. I mean, I always tried to ask good questions, and then eventually I was told by my party to shut up and not ask my questions. So then I just, stopped caring and stopped asking questions. Because apparently when you do too good of a job, they don't like that. Anyways, Kuda says, I've seen some memorial wall of pictures they unveiled, and they had the son's picture on the wall as well. Yeah, you're referring to this. So let me pull this up really quick. This is what you're referring to. So so it's this here. It's like the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing. So it's like it's like this memorial wall of like all the terrorists that were boomed by the boomed by the United States. And Mojtaba Khamenei, who is supposedly alive, is also on the memorial wall, and it's just very weird. So there's the current supreme dictator, Mojtaba. For some reason, he's on the memorial wall. We have no idea why. Then everyone's just like, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, whatever, right? Like, just going full dirk. And then there's Qasem Soleimani, of course, which President Trump boomed back in 2020. Thank you, President Trump, for that. Yeah, but it's very bizarre that they unveiled this memorial wall, and it's supposed to be all like dead people, and then the current supreme dictator is there as well. Like, it's just, guys, the entire thing is messed up. There is nothing normal or rational or logical about the Islamic regime. It's literally a 7th century Islamic death cult, and they all belong in like the garbage. Like, literally, like this ideology, this cult has not provided anything positive to like, it has not contributed a single positive thing to humanity in the entire existence of its ideology, right? Like, this ideology, this cult, it's literally a cancer. It's a cancer on human civilization. There is not a single positive thing that like the ideology of the Islamic regime has contributed to humanity. Not a single thing. But yeah, there you go. That's what Kuda was referring to, for those of you who have not seen it. And then we have a comment from Nick saying, Viva Goldie, thank you for being a voice for our people. Keep up the fight, Javid Shah. Thank you so much. Durud bar shoma, Javid Shah, and Umid Azadi Iran. Okay, let's continue.
Plan now to actually win this war, because it feels like we're losing. We don't have a nuclear deal. We don't have the Strait open. The president has called for unconditional.
It feels like you're losing? No. Wow. So this guy is actually putting out these sound bites thinking like he actually, like, does he actually believe that the United States is losing, or is he just suffering from Trump derangement syndrome? Like, this is insane. This is insane right now.
Surrender, is that part of the plan?
Congressman, we achieved all our military objectives. We're presently in a ceasefire. We're executing a blockade, and we're prepared for a broad range of contingencies.
Well, it doesn't seem to be going well. And I would like to know how many more Americans we have to ask to die for this mistake. Do you know?
I think it's an entirely inappropriate statement from you, sir.
Gentleman's time has expired.
You know, I'm glad that Admiral Cooper called him out, because that's, you know, one of the things that I've seen from military people. And there was also, I think, another retired general or brigadier general on Piers Morgan, and he also called out, I think he either called out Chunky Yogurt or Anna Kasparian or someone when they did the same thing. And then that the retired general said that is a completely inappropriate line of questioning, like, because that's very insulting to the American service members who've lost their lives, right? And the way that it's been explained to me is that, you know, when someone joins the military, they do it knowing the risks, and they're literally, you know, like they're happy to you know, make the ultimate sacrifice for their country. Obviously, one life lost is one life too many, but I've been told, and my understanding is that one of the most insulting things that people can do is to politicize the death of military person, and politicize their deaths for, like, you know, political gain or something. So that's why Admiral Brad Cooper here, like, he's just like, he's had enough. He's like, that's very disrespectful, right? So that moral outrage, like the fake moral outrage from the Democrats, especially since the Democrats don't support the military anyway, right? Like, the Democrats are all about, like, limiting the funding and, you know, all that stuff. So the fact that the Democrats don't support the military in the first place, and, you know, like, what he's doing here, like the way that this guy, this, you know, disgusting man, is politicizing the deaths of those American military men and women, the way that he's politicizing their deaths for his political gain. And you see how, like, disgusted and angry Admiral Brad Cooper becomes. That's exactly how we Iranians feel when the Democrats politicize the loss of Iranian life for their own gain, because they don't care about us Iranians either. Like it's all fake moral outrage, basically, for their political gain. So it's the same disgusting tactic, and, you know, shame on them all. Shame on you too.
Do you know?
I think it's an entirely inappropriate. All our military objectives. We're presently in a ceasefire. We're executing a blockade, and we're prepared for a broad range of contingencies.
Well, it doesn't seem to be going well. And I would like to know how many more Americans we have to ask to die for this mistake. Do you know?
I think it's an entirely inappropriate statement from you, sir.
Gentleman's time has
With
expired.
all
Now
due
recognizes-
respect. With all due
It's not a
respect.
statement, it's a
Chair
question.
now recognizes the gentleman from
With all due
Tennessee,
respect.
Dr. Desjardins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. So what Admiral Brad Cooper there is saying, with all due respect, that's basically like the politically correct way of basically saying, like, you know, F you and F off. That's when he says with all due respect, that's literally what he means there.
Admiral Cooper, Israel, Jordan, and our partners in the Gulf demonstrate historic capabilities and cooperation to defend themselves and enable Operation Epic Fury. This trust was not built overnight. What role does CENTCOM's long-running military partnership and security cooperation play to achieve these operational effects?
So our partnerships in the region over the last several months, from the mill-to-mill perspective, have been dramatically enhanced. I'd particularly like to cite the shoulder-to-shoulder operations with 5 of the 6 GCC countries, with whom we have Patriot batteries assigned, not just figuratively, but literally. In these countries, in particular, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, and Kuwait, employ their Patriots to protect Americans. I think that's the greatest sign of what integration looks like and what strong partnership looks like.
Do you think that our NATO allies and European allies are safer because of Operation Epic Fury?
Yes, sir, I do.
I don't know whether you can say whether or not you're disappointed in the lack of response and cooperation from our NATO allies, but maybe Mr. Zimmerman would opine on that.
Thank you, Congressman. We can talk more about in the next session. Certainly, we have been very eager for our certain NATO partners to be much quicker to step up and lend a hand. We have gotten support from some of our NATO allies. That's part of the story. But in some cases, it was disappointingly late to need.
But when it came to Russia and Ukraine, they were very pleased that we were directly involved, correct?
Very pleased.
Yes. Admiral Cooper, you stated in your opening statement pretty clearly. Do you think that Iran's regime is stronger today than it was before Epic Fury?
Congressman, by every measure of national power, Iran is significantly weaker.
Okay, so their military is significantly degraded. Can they project power like they could 8 weeks ago?
They cannot, sir.
Okay, and do you think that their information that they receive, and this may go back to Mr. Zimmerman, but the information that you're hearing in this committee today, the one thing I love about armed services is we're very bipartisan. We're on Team America. But Mr. Zimmerman, do you think that the Iranian regime pays attention to U.S. politics?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. This is my opinion, but I'm hearing people in this room today, and certainly on news outlets like CNN and other left-leaning outlets that seem to almost be rooting against America.
Yeah.
From what Admiral Cooper describes and what our military has achieved, which they should be getting nothing but accolades from this entire committee as well as the entire country, the operations that they have undergone in Venezuela with Midnight Hammer, with Epic Fury. There shouldn't be an American on this continent that isn't proud of what our military did. But yet what we're hearing in the news and what we're hearing in this room seems to very much wane on politics. The fact that we're talking about gas prices when just less than 5 years ago, they were over $5 under Biden, and under Obama, they had a sustained high price for longer than any other president. Yeah. Is it helpful to have this type of opposition in terms of military success in the Middle East right now going on when we're trying to finish degrading?
You know what? I get what he's doing here, and I appreciate that. But again, this puts Admiral Brad Cooper in an awkward position because again, he's sort of asking Admiral Brad Cooper to comment on a political strategy. And I get that it's a friendly question, but again, Admiral Brad Cooper is supposed to be, apolitical, nonpartisan. So, it puts him in a tough spot. I know this guy means well. I know that this guy means well, but man, just focus on the military. Just focus on the military. You can't ask military people about politics.
Well, it's probably our third biggest adversary, Mr. Zimmerman.
Oh, wait. Okay. So he's asking Zimmerman. Okay. That's fine. So if he's asking Zimmerman, then that's fine. Because Zimmerman can answer political type questions, I guess. So, all right. My bad. I thought he was asking Brad Cooper.
Congressman, the good news is that the president has been very clear about his resolve to bring a solution to this conflict that will advance U.S. interests, and the Iranians pay attention to that too.
These things don't always happen exactly as planned, and there are things that change, right, Admiral Cooper, in terms of the timing. I think when Obama went after Gaddafi, it ended up taking 7 months. We're a few months into this. You've already said that the Iranian military, the regime, their military capability has been substantially reduced. Their nuclear capability has been substantially reduced. Their ability to achieve a nuclear weapon has been substantially reduced. So all of these things would indicate that Operation Epic Fury has achieved a great success to this point. Would you agree?
I would, sir. We met all our military objectives, and just on the point of timing, we conducted military operations for 38 days, and now we're 40 or so plus since the ceasefire is in effect. So we've actually been in the ceasefire longer than we were conducting active kinetic operations.
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair, now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr.
All right. Okay, guys. So we're going to end it off here. Guys, we were much better today. Well, I was much better today. So we managed to get through almost an hour of the congressional hearings. So yesterday we only got through about 27 minutes. Right now we got about through 50 or so minutes. So we're about halfway through, which is a pretty good place to be. I do have to end the live stream here because it's getting a little bit late and I do have to go to bed, working on a few videos. So guys, make sure that you are liked and subscribed and have your notifications turned on. I see one final super chat, so we'll go to that and then we're going to call it a night. And then we'll just have to wait for part 3 of this congressional hearing, which I'm actually finding very interesting, by the way. I mean, I don't know if you guys find this interesting, but as a political nerd, like this is totally my bread and butter. So I enjoy watching this, and thanks for being here to join me on this. So Nick says, the ones like him, oh, you're referring to that the other dude, the one right before. The ones like him make me feel like I should run for office. I know I do better than most of the Dems. Who votes for these people? The people who vote for these people are the ones who literally suffer from Trump derangement syndrome or whatever the case can be. Like, politics is weird. Politics is definitely like a very bizarre and weird world. Yeah, it also ages you. It ages you very quickly. So guys, thank you all for joining me for tonight's live stream of this, this episode of the Goldie Show. And I will see you all tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern for day 146 of Iran Revolution Live. Until then, stay safe. And you guys know my catchphrase. And now you know. There you go.
Talking of peace, but you know how it ends. Smiles for the cameras, deals in the light, but truth disappears somewhere out of sight. Mullahs behind it, controlling the flow. You shake hands with fire, but you already know. Still grow, dreaming of a future they don't even know. Deals at the top while the pressure runs low, and down below the fear continues to grow. Deal with the devil, you know what it costs. Promises fade while the lines get crossed. Deal with the devil, you hear their call. Voices in chains still rise and fall. Deal with the devil, don't look away. Taken day by day. strength. Don't let it all go